Alright, I feel like, I'm gonna test Instagram's video capacity. Ugh. Excuse me. But, I guess part of that's gonna be trying to talk a little bit about the idea of motivation. Now, I'm not trying to be like, oh yeah, everybody should get motivated. Like, there's all these videos all over, and they're good help. They'll have good advice in them. But it's usually like, get up off your ass, stop being this or that, put yourself up more, and all this crap. I don't really think it's, necessarily that sound. This is coming from someone that does beat himself up, though. I'll be real. I got band-aids to prove it. But I wanted to say that sometimes the obstacle is the way, and so you might run into an obstacle in your life. You might run into something like say a snare or a trap or some other kind of device that goes against you, and if you're able to sort of navigate that, then you might be able to find a way through it. For instance, I've always found the salmon an admirable fish, because a salmon will swim up the stream its entire life. It'll swim upstream, and it might hit some rocks on the way, but it'll eventually keep going up that waterfall. Now what I'm saying here is, it's like, yes, the waterfall is the obstacle, but the waterfall is also the way. That's where the salmon lives, is constantly swimming up that river. Now, it might kind of seem pointless to mention the whole salmon thing, but I kind of wanted to, I guess, put it into the fact that I've had things in my life where I've had my own downward currents, or I've had my own waterfalls I had to get up, things like that. And one thing I'll say is, though the waterfall and the resistance of it might be the motivator to keep you moving forward, it is not the thing itself that propels the fish. The fish doesn't swim up the river because the waterfall is going against it. It swims up the river because that's the way it's going. And I feel like that's kind of, it's hard to sometimes lay that out. It sounds a little bit intense and foreboding, so I try not to really put it in that way. But yeah, it's basically the idea of like being able to look at things from the stance of reality. Hell, just looking at it through physics even gives you enough of a standpoint to be able to be like, okay, well, here's what like actually is the case in this scenario. Here's what propels me forward here. What gets the fish up the waterfall? It's not the waterfall pushing it against it and pushing it down and keeping it at the bottom. It's the fact that the fish keeps swimming up the waterfall anyway. It's the strength that the fish gains during that kind of thing. So it's not like, oh, well, maybe I need to go and be in a hurricane or something, and I'll be like, more motivated. And it's like, that's not necessarily sound advice. That's dangerous. But what I would say is, it's like, say somebody's afraid of heights. What they should do is they should find a situation where they can climb higher than they used to go. And, they don't have to compete with the world's greatest trapeze artist or some shit to overcome their fear of heights. But, overcoming that fear, would take steps, like baby steps. So I'm saying this because it's like, I've dealt with anxiety before, and like things like depression, and a lot of things, there's comfort in those feelings and maintaining that, and like using certain methods to keep yourself in that state of mind and this lacking mentality, so you don't feel like you can move up. But at the same time, it's like, if you just little by little, like, okay, well, I'm gonna maybe climb this ladder 1 story, now I'm gonna climb it 2 stories, then I'm gonna climb it 3 stories. That's how you can actually track improvement. If you're gonna be like, oh, well, I'm gonna outswim Michael Phelps, you're gonna feel like you're a shitty swimmer. your entire life. You're gonna never, not once, feel like you're good unless you could beat an Olympic gold medalist. But the problem with that thinking, well, yes, the point, precisely the point, the problem with that thinking is you're not, in reality, you're not competing with Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps has nothing to do with you. You, whoever happens to watch this, I don't know, it could be anyone. Anyone needs motivation, I guess, or if they want it, you're competing with yourself. So it's like me, the way I look at it is like, if I'm gonna sit there and draw something, do I want to be better than Leonardo da Vinci? I might joke around about it, but no. Like, I don't think I can do that overnight. That's ridiculous. But can I draw better than my last drawing I did? Sure, I probably can. In fact, there's probably like at least like a 90% chance if I try hard enough, if I try just a little bit harder than I did the day before, if I learned just a little bit more than the day before, I'll be able to draw better the next day. And that is, that means, oh, well, the person I'm competing with, myself yesterday, I was able to overcome them today. So sometimes it seems like the most simple kinds of conventional wisdom, the stuff that gets brushed off really easily, is like, oh yeah, whatever, anybody could say that. And it's like, yeah, but not everybody does that. And it's like, you'd be impressed with yourself if you're gonna look at yourself and be like, okay, what am I good at? Me personally, I probably couldn't outswim Michael Phelps. I could damn well try, but I'm pretty sure he'd kick my ass in a swimming competition. But that said, I play guitar, and I'd like to be like, well, maybe I can be better than myself yesterday. And how am I going to improve? Where am I going to get those skills? I'll just look at somebody who is good at playing guitar now and try to pick up on that and try to emulate what it is they do. And hopefully that will give me the skills to move forward and be able to be like, okay, well, now I'm a little bit better at guitar. Okay, now I'm a little bit better at drawing. Okay, now I'm a little bit better at speaking and overcoming my own, like, vocal issues that keep me from being able to speak or enunciate things properly. That's kind of a personal one. With things like that, it's, working on those little things, but you're not competing with, like, Jerry Garcia or something. Like, you're not competing with, like, Jimi Hendrix, or, like, if you're a guitar player, you're competing with who you were yesterday. Are you better than who you were yesterday, or are you worse than who you were yesterday? And it's like, oh, maybe I feel like I'm a little bit worse. It's like, yeah, but also look at this. Are the conditions you're in optimum, or better or worse than yesterday? There's always more to it. It's like, what is the surrounding situation? Are there other factors that are invading on your ability to improve this skill? Or is it just you? It's like, there's a whole beat yourself up, you can always do better kind of thing. Or there's like, well, maybe give yourself a little bit of a break, kind of move forward, baby steps. And if you take a step back, it's like, everybody who's ever taken a step back, and been like, I'm still going to keep trying to go forward, has probably made 2 steps forward. But everyone who's like, oh, I made a step back, and they got that discouraged them, then they kind of just sit there, and then they're slowly taking steps back every day. And so with something like a skill, like say it's singing, trying to hit a pitch. Maybe you're like a few semitones off. Maybe you're like a fraction of a note off or something. Or maybe you're like a whole octave off, but you're able to sing still, and you're singing, you care about it enough that you're improving it by degrees, little by little. It's like, how do you think anyone ever got good at singing? Do you think it just like came out of the womb, or like, like better than everybody? It's like, I don't think it works that way. I think people have to really look at themselves. And it's not necessarily in a narcissistic, oh yes, I'm going to be the best singer. But it's like looking at yourself in the sense of like, I'm going to try to improve this little thing about myself today by a hair, by a degree. And then the next day, I'm going to improve it just a little more. The next day, just a little more. And if maybe I'll take fucking Saturday off. Or maybe I'll take freaking Sunday off or something. And then be like, okay, now I'm back on it. Did I lose any edge? Or maybe the rest helped me? That's a problem I have. Is actually being like, oh, well, maybe I should rest more. Maybe I should, like, take a step back from my own, like, exercises that try to improve myself and look at it more like, well, I don't know, maybe I don't need to push so hard. And this is coming from, like, I try to work hard, but when I look at what really motivates me to work hard, is it because I want to do a good job, or I want to be perceived as somebody who works hard, or all these things? Like, well, those are superficial reasons. Those might be temporary goalposts. Be like, oh yeah, if I get good at guitar, I can write an impressive song and everyone will love it. But if it's like, eventually, people who play guitar long enough, they realize you never really master the guitar. And so then they're like, well, am I playing something that is real to me or that I enjoy? Because, if you wanted to sound perfect, all you have to do is get like a digital audio workshop and doctor it up a bunch and make sure all the notes are right and use like a pitch correction thing. Or maybe even just like take samples and edit it little by little and you'd have like the exact thing you want. But it's like, but is that actually like you playing it at that point? Because that's like, if you want perfection, then you just like edit it into perfection. But if you want to you want to enjoy playing it, like, be like, well, I missed a note, what did I learn from missing a note? Rather than, oh, I missed a note, that means for the entire time I'm playing guitar, and I'll have to compensate by always missing this note, or by never missing a note again, oh no, or it's like, catastrophizing it. But that doesn't really help anything. Catastrophizing something makes you like more prone to go into the direction of then being like, okay, well, it's a disaster, I can't do it anyway, so I guess I just won't play guitar anymore. I guess I just suck at guitar now. I guess I just, this is over. That's over. And you can't just, look at it that way, because that's going to be negative for you your entire life if you do. But if you look at it as like, okay, well, maybe just by degrees, make the tiny micro adjustments I need to make to be able to improve myself little by little by little by little, in whatever category it is. For some people, it's like, maybe having like a better sense of punctuality when it comes to speaking instead of rambling. Maybe things like that. But the thing that helps the most is being self-aware of the very things that are causing you to be either held back or to be insecure. And the things that do help are, facing an obstacle might help. But at the same time, you can't let the obstacle itself take credit for the improvement that was made. Because it's, nobody chooses necessarily to have a mountain in their path. But people can choose how they navigate around the mountain or how they overcome that mountain. So people talk about moving a mountain even. And I'm like, well, moving a mountain's your thing. Then you go for it. That's all I say. I mean, I believe in having faith. That's why I wear this. But, it's like, go for it, Or like, it's like, don't give up on a skill or a dream because, like, if you fail once or twice. Because that doesn't define who you are. Like, for instance, me, I'll be, like, chopping up food at my job. And if I cut my fingers. And if I was just like, okay, well, I guess I just don't cook anymore. I guess I'm just bad at cooking now. I guess I'm a failure. I should never cook again. That's one way to look at it. But that's not a positive way to look at it. And, even someone else might be like, hey, you're a failure. You just suck at this. It's like that. Well, they're not giving you sound advice. They don't really give a shit about you if they're giving you advice that's like only criticism. I think criticism can help, but if it's all criticism and there's no construction in there, if there's nothing like, well, here's a way to do a little bit better, or here's why you should do a little bit better, that's like one way to look at it. And so I'm not saying this as like a know-it-all, but I'm saying it's more like from my experience, this is how I feel about certain things, is sometimes it's easier to make micro adjustments little by little. You can't really be like, okay, well, now I'm left-handed, or now I'm right-handed. Now now I'm left-handed. I can play like Jimi Hendrix. Now I can play Voodoo Child. Like, it's like, yeah, you might have to learn it. It's things like that. It's not simple or easy, but it's doable, and it's what you're willing to put into something. You can't put everything into everything. That's, I can't be like, oh, well, I want to be like the best gold medalist in the world at swimming and beat Michael Phelps, but I also want to be a world famous sumo wrestler. It's like those two things kind of like cancel each other out. I don't think you can necessarily do both of those things. If you could, I'd be impressed. I'd be like, whoa, that guy moves different. But I mean, I think that, realizing it's like skills in life can unlock other skills in life. So if you're looking at life as like through this lack mentality of like, I don't have this, or I need this to be able to do this, it's like, well, you're looking at it the wrong way. Like, I saw a dude with no arms cleaning and like processing potatoes on a farm that he ran. He had no arms. It's like, do you know how hard that is to have no arms and to be like fucking harvesting vegetables and like cleaning them and like processing them all by yourself? I mean, it was probably one of those fake videos, but still, it's the fact that at least in the video, the guy was doing a fair amount of work that way. And some people will be like, well, that's unbelievable, someone could do that. And it's like, well, it depends on how much you believe in yourself or how determined you are. If you're just like, oh, well, I'm not determined, so I'm going to give up because one thing happens here or here, or it's like, oh, well, someone judged me, so that I need to define myself by their judgment, even if it's completely inaccurate. That is another way to look at it. It's like, why are you putting yourself in a narrative where you cannot succeed if your goal is to be doing better than you were yesterday? And I don't think I want to know someone whose goal is to do worse than they were doing the day before. To be like, okay, well, maybe I'll smoke a few more cigarettes today. It's like, maybe I'll drink a little bit more beer today than last time. It's like that kind of trajectory is like, okay, well, you're kind of like putting yourself on a negative path. And it's not like I'm trying to be judgmental and Puritan about it, but it's like, that isn't sound advice. But it's like, maybe I would sleep around with like this many more people today, like kind of break my record. It's like, those are like motivating yourself in a path that generally is unhealthy and is going to lead to like short-term satisfaction, but no long-term happiness. I'm not saying this as someone who's like, they never had a vice in his life, or someone who's holier than thou when I say that. I'm just saying this is like, well, that's kind of from my own experiences what I've learned. I've learned that, you can't always act like, you can't put the bar up on the moon and expect to reach it in one bound and then be like, oh, fuck, I didn't reach it. That means game over, man. Oh! It's like, I'm not trying to joke about suicide, but I guess that was a joke about suicide. I mean, I really don't know what to say about it. It was definitely a joke about suicide. Don't do that. Don't kill yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Don't put yourself in the lack mentality. Don't act like it's just like, well, downward, because you are living in a narrative that's downward. Instead, look at the narrative of like what is it I'm attached to that's holding me back? Is that thing, pushing me forward, or is that thing a weight? And if it's a weight holding you down, it's like, well, then you kind of have to sever the weight. If it's like, for instance, and this is actually, this is one I don't like to really get into, but sometimes it's like the people you surround yourself with might be the kind of people that don't have your best interest in mind, and they might want you to think they have your best interest in mind, but the reality is that they actually see you as more like an extension of themselves than they do as your own autonomous person with your own problems, with your own struggles and issues that are separate from theirs. And then it's like, oh, well, this person's like, improved something about themselves. That's because of me. That's because I gave them advice. That's because they watched my video on Instagram, and now it's all my credit. I get it, not you. Everything you ever achieve in your life is because of me. That kind of thing. It's like unhealthy, and it's not true, because then you're attributing your own, if your own success is, well, how many people have I helped in some way? Because it's good to help people, but like, when you help somebody, it's not a one-way street, that person helps themselves as well, if they get anywhere with it. If they don't get anywhere with it, a lot of the times it's like, or if they drain you instead, then it's like, well, this person isn't motivated to move forward. So, trying to motivate someone else, be like, hey, maybe you have a friend who doesn't have a job, and helping him, like, get a job. Maybe they're, like, too afraid to do a job interview or something. Like, helping that person build the social skills so they're, like, actually might look forward to the interaction because they'd be prepared for it, and they wouldn't have like a lack mentality, a worst case scenario mentality. Instead, they'd be having a realistic mentality of like, oh, well, this place needs people to work there. I have these skills. I'm going to use these skills to their benefit, and they're going to be giving me the opportunity, and there's an equivalent exchange there. People are benefiting both ways. That is a net pro situation. That's where everything goes good, because both parties are gaining what they need in exchange for what they have that they're willing to give for the need. And that is a net positive. But if there's a situation where it's like, well, I'm just going to take and take and take and take and take from someone, and then that person's like, well, maybe I'm out of shit for you to take, or maybe they're like, or maybe it's like, I'm not going to let you take anything from me anymore. Then it gets to the point where they're like, it's like, well, what do I do now? What do I do now? I can't take anything from someone anymore. It's like, well, what do you have that you could be investing in that's internal? You can't count on it being a sunny day every day, but you can count on yourself to be able to handle the heat, or to be able to handle, say it's a blizzard outside, to be able to handle that. There was a quote, I don't remember what the quote was from, but it said something along the lines of like, the bird, when a branch breaks, the bird knows that it can rely upon its wings. So that kind of thing is, it's not like, oh, well, the branch is my security. If it builds a nest on that branch, you better hope it's a secure branch. But if it's sitting on a branch and the branch breaks, the bird will still fly away from the broken, snapped branch. It'll, it still has its wings. And so you can't be like, oh, well, the branch broke, and because of that, the bird just fell to its death. Except for the fact that, or maybe the branch is the reason it flew. The branch breaking is why it was able to fly. And it's like, well, no, the branch broke, but the bird still flew anyway. And so trying to define it as in like, those terms, it's not a healthy way to look at the situation.